I was tired. I was so tired of building someone else's dream. There's got to be more than this. I was killing my own dreams, prioritizing theirs. And so when I paid off my last student debt payment, I realized this is the perfect time for me to figure out, what do I want to do? What would I do if I wasn't doing this? I realized it was the perfect time for me to explore my options. So, hey, I'm Rashida, a corporate dropout, a recovering workaholic, and your dream strategist. And I am all about helping workaholics create freedom of time and energy, and even to create freedom of location and money in their life so that they can live all the freedom, do all the things, live the life that they've always wanted to live. If that sounds exciting to you, I'd love for you to stick around. So, first, a little backstory why I quit my job. I quit because, as I said before, I knew that I was building someone else's dreams. I realized it was at the cost of my own. I didn't have the energy when I got home. I couldn't even imagine what I really wanted to do. I just knew I had this yearning to do something else that I was already doing. I felt like there just wasn't enough happening. I wanted more. And so when I quit, since I can't seem to figure out what more is, what more looks like while I'm in this job, I need to quit and go figure it out just willy nilly on my own. I needed to take the leap, the jump, to go try and do something else, even though I had absolutely no idea what that else would be. Before I quit, there was this pivotal moment where I decided I was going to pay off my debt. Now, I knew that I wanted to do that since college, but I was almost at my 30s at that point and I had not started. And then someone gave me this book called Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover. And it was the plan that I didn't know that I needed to be able to really get started. One of the first steps that you do when you start that Total Money Makeover is that you list out all the debts from smallest to largest, because that's how you're going to work through them. When I added all the numbers up and the total was $65,000, I cried because I really hadn't realized how much debt I had. But I did realize that that was the biggest barrier that was going to keep me from really going off, quitting my job, and doing all of these other things that I yearned to do. So it was so important for me to get it done. That was motivation for me. As Dave Ramsey calls it, I got Gazelle intense. I knew that this was what was going to get me to all of the freedom, to even exploring what I wanted my freedom to look like. I sold my car. I downgraded my apartment. I got roommates. I took a second job. I did whatever I needed to do to get out of debt. Now, during that time, every time that I paid off a debt, I have to tell you, I could feel the freedom in my body. I could feel the revelation. I could feel myself being able to sit taller, being able to smile harder, being able to have less stress, knowing that I didn't have debt hanging over my head anymore. And it was so huge for me. So then when I finally did pay off the debt, I was ready. I was ready to take whatever leap that I needed to take, because I knew I was at that point to go to whatever next level, whatever next chapter that life had for me. And in 2.5 years later, with the negative equity from my car, I had paid off $69,000 in cash. You can actually watch my debt-free scream right here on my channel. I've saved it to my playlist on my home feed. So I paid that last debt off and I was like, wow, I actually don't have to do this job anymore. What would I like to do now? And that was a really huge question. All of that happened before I quit my job. So I paid off my last debt. I decided I don't have to do this job anymore. I can go do whatever I want. And I had been looking at this 11-month trip where I went backpacking around the world. And I decided that that was what I was going to do. So I made my last debt payment in April. In October, I left on that trip. And it was the best decision that I ever could have made, because it really challenged me to explore. It challenged me to step out of the box that my job had put me in. It challenged me to step out of the box of just living for the sake of making money. And it made me stop and ask myself, if I wasn't doing this, what would I do? And that was the question that really inspired me to live outside of what I known as the American dream, that get a job, go to college, get a White House with a picket fence, a husband, 2 kids, and a dog. I wanted more than that. And this had given me the freedom and go explore. Well, if I don't want that, then what do I want? What are the other options that I could do? And that gave me the freedom to choose what did I want those options to be. All of that being said, there are a couple regrets, a couple things that I wish I would have done a little differently. So let's get into that. Regret number one. So the first thing I wish that I would have created a long-term vision. Actually, I really wish that I would have had this in high school, but really once I was at this place where I was making this huge transition, I wish that I would have had someone who I would have been able to sit down and ask me questions about why did I want the things that I want that would have helped me go a little deeper inside who I am and who I wanted to show up and be, because it would have changed how I made some of the decisions. Knowing where I wanted my life to go in the long term changes how I make decisions today. And now I'm really good at that. And I actually coach my clients in helping people do that. But then, had I known that eventually I would get tired of traveling and that I would want a home base so that I could travel and have somewhere to come back so that all of my stuff could be in one place, I would have bought my condo or bought my house while I was still working. It was easier to do. So there were just some things that had I had some forethought of where I wanted my life to be 10 years from now, I would have made better decisions in that moment. So that's regret number one, that I wish I would have had a long-term vision because I would have made better decisions in my present for my long term. Regret number two, I wish that I would have invested in myself, specifically around coaching and mentorship sooner. So we have this weird culture in America where it makes sense or it's like culturally acceptable to pay for college, but we're just now getting to this place where we're understanding the investment of getting help from a specialist, from someone who has lived your exact experience and is where you've been and understands where you're trying to go and will give you a plan to get there so that you don't have to figure it out on your own. I wish that I would have taken advantage of that sooner. When I first did the sleep, I didn't know what a coach was. Someone said to me, you should be a life coach. I wish I would have really dove into that and invested in a business coach, a marketing coach. Those are all things that I invest in now. But if I would have done that sooner, the 4 years that it's taken me to get to where I am now, I would have been able to quantum leap that so much further because I would have had that streamlined process. I would have had a mentor to say, girl, that's going to take you somewhere you don't want to go. Let me take you over here and said, this is going to be better for you. So I wish I would have had that kind of connection with someone to help me circumvent some of the things I could have gone wrong and really just stuck to the things that were proven and could help me go further. So regret number three, I wish that I would have had better boundaries with myself from the beginning. So as a recovering workaholic, in my mind, I thought, okay, because I'm leaving my job, I am going to naturally want to do less. I am going to naturally choose to take vacation, choose to do all the things that I wasn't really allowing myself to do or not doing as often as I wanted to do in my corporate job. And the reality is it doesn't automatically happen. The workaholic part of what we do is a mindset. And you can change that mindset in your job that you're currently in, or you can change it outside of it. But it's a mindset change that has to happen because instead of leaving my job and immediately finding more freedom and immediately choosing myself and choosing rest more, I just took all of that workaholic energy that I was giving to my job. I just took that and put it to my business. And so at the beginning, I had to really do this reset of my mind of how I perceived work. What did it look like to achieve? What did it look like to get things done? How was I going to measure my own success? How was I going to measure my own progress inside of my business and what I did? I had to really make this mindset shift about being a workaholic and actually seeing that I was the problem and that I needed to change, not just changing my career path. Okay, so with that being said, I want to take a pause. Have you considered quitting your job? And then what feelings did you have? Were you excited about it? And then if you've quit already, what feelings do you have now? Like what things make you scared? What things are you worried about? I would love to talk about those things in the comments. Okay. All right. So then let's get back to it. So I gave you 3 regrets that I had. Next, let's talk about the revelations that I had in quitting my job. Revelation number 1, even though I had those 3 regrets and there's things that I would probably do a little different, at the end of the day, my biggest revelation is that I would absolutely still do it because there were things that I could not learn about myself in that situation. I needed to be taken out of my comfort zone. I needed to explore. I needed to be put in situations different than what I had been in to really even go deeper in knowing myself, what I want, what I can do, how far I can go, and allowing all of those boundaries to be taken away so that I can truly explore all of those things. Okay, so revelation number 2. Since I decided to start a business, I wish that I would have prioritized getting business besties sooner. Listen, starting a business is hard. I think we all know that. We've heard the statistics and all of those things. But starting a lifestyle business to create freedom in your life is even harder, in my opinion, because it's so much easier to go back to those workaholic tendencies that you've been living out of your whole life. And you need other people who are in the same situation, who you're all learning from each other. We remind each other, hey, you're doing too much. You're trying to push yourself further, faster than you need to go. Relax into this. Remember, this is a journey. Remember, this is a marathon. This is not a sprint. And so those kind of conversations really help ground you and help you feel like you're not behind. And I wish I would have invested in creating that circle of people sooner, because I would have been able to step from this workaholic into recovering workaholic type tendencies even sooner than I did. Okay, revelation number 3. If you are waiting for the perfect understanding or the perfect clarity of what you want your life to look like afterwards, I would say there's no such thing. There are things that you're not even going to know that you want until you take yourself out of that situation. So what I say with that, going back to where I said, I wish I would have had a long-term vision, partner that with, write down what you think you want your life to look like today, and then start going after it. And then take the leap. Don't wait until you feel like that picture is perfectly clear and you can see the perfect path to get there. Don't wait for that. Go ahead and take the leap, because there's things that I learned about myself after I took the leap. I originally thought I wanted, but actually I didn't want. And things that I thought I didn't want that exactly, but I found a different version of that I would have never found if I would not have just taken the leap and allowed myself to learn more of what I wanted. So go ahead and jump. That's revelation number 3. Don't hold back for clarity. Go ahead and jump now. You're going to get clarity as you go. I would say this: clarity is not a one-time thing. It is an evolution. You get more and more clear. I like to think of it like a mountain. If you're at the base of the mountain, then the mountain is like this. You keep going around the mountain, and every time you go around, things get more and more clear. That is what's going to happen as you just take this leap and allow yourself to really start exploring, what does freedom look like for you? Okay, so I gave you 3 regrets. And then I gave you 3 revelations. Now I want to give you 3 fears that held me back, that if I would have had a different mindset about it, I would have jumped sooner. So I want to give you this mindset reframe, because this is going to be an amazing experience and I don't want anything to hold you back. Fear number 1. I knew at 17 that I was supposed to be an entrepreneur. And your girl was like, I literally was like, I don't want to be an entrepreneur. I'd had the voice of God tell me, you are going to be an entrepreneur. And I was like, no, I'm not. You lost your mind. Because I was scared. I was so scared. On one hand, I knew that I was going to be an entrepreneur, but I also knew that I was already a workaholic. By the time I was 17, I had already been working 2 jobs and going to school. I knew how to work, and I knew that the business was going to be a lot of work. And so I was scared that I was going to get into this business and that I would never come up for air, that I would never have a life, because I was going to be working all the time. And I didn't want that. So I went for the corporate job because I thought that that was going to give me the stability that I needed, that I would not be a workaholic, and I still became a workaholic. I wished what I would have done instead is that I went ahead and became the entrepreneur at 17, and then I would have had the opportunity to figure out the things that I figured out in my 20s rather than figuring them out in my mid and late 30s. And I would have been so much further along on my business, so much further along in my growth, all of those things because I would have taken that leap sooner. So if I were to go back and tell my 17-year-old self anything, I would say, yes, every single thing that you're scared of, I get it. And it's probably going to happen and do it anyway, because it's actually going to get you what you want in the end. The thing that you're running to instead of that is not going to get you what you want. So just go ahead and do the hard thing. Don't take the easy route. Do the hard thing, knowing that it's going to get you there. All of the things that you're scared of will happen. And those things will make you grow. You're going to find a better way, and you're not going to sit in that. You've never been a person to allow yourself to drown in anything. You will figure out a way. You will learn to swim. So go ahead and try. That's what I would tell my 17-year-old self, and that's what I'm telling you. So fear number 2 is that I was completely terrified of starting over. I felt this pressure, and I feel like, especially as Black women, we've had this somehow ingrained in us. And Michelle Obama even talks about it in her story, Becoming, where you go to school, you get good grades, you graduate from high school with great grades, and then you go to college and you get great grades, and that allows you to get a great job. And it's this conveyor belt that we're kind of just moving on of life. It's this set structure that we're moving through, and no one ever really stops and says, but do you really want that? Is that what you want from life? Do you want to do something else? Is that going to be the fullest embodiment of you and who you are? So we do that, and then we get to this point that we don't like our life. But then we're terrified of starting over because we have no idea what that's going to look like. We don't know what freedom looks like on the other side when you don't see that many people really doing it. It seems like the only people who are free are rich, or all of these things that feel somewhat unattainable. And so I was scared. I was really scared to quit because I didn't know what life was going to look like on the other side. At the end of the day, I felt like a failure because I had spent so much time on that career, buying things that I actually didn't want, trying to go up this corporate ladder, building this life that at the end of the day, I would rather give all of that up and backpack around the world than continue to keep doing what I had been doing. So while I felt those things, on the other hand, starting over made me feel like a failure. Here's what I would tell myself instead of worrying about that fear. You are not really starting over. Everything that you've learned so far, you've used it in different contexts, but all of those things are going to roll over into different experiences that really help make you who you are and show you what you want from life. So none of that time was wasted. None of the money was wasted. None of the education was wasted. All of those things are used, even if they're not used in the original context or the original form that you thought it was going to be. And so it's still worth it. I'm still so glad that I took every single one of those leaps. And that's what I would tell my 17-year-old self. Don't be afraid to start over because it's all going to come back around in the end. And you're going to be glad that you had those experiences because you're going to use them even now and even more. Okay. So fear number 3. On one hand, I was tired of the American dream. I was tired of going to work, trying to date, trying to get that house with the white picket fence, the 2 kids and a dog. I was tired of that whole concept. And I was also completely terrified to define success for myself. It was like, well, what if somebody thinks my dream is weird? And, we kind of say to ourselves, oh, I'm not ever going to think about that because I don't care what anybody else thinks. But the reality is we do care what other people think. We might not care what the random so-and-so person thinks, but we care what our mother thinks, care what our parents and our father thinks. We care what our grandmother thinks. We care that the people around us that love us see us as a success. We care that we feel like a success. Those are the people, the things that help shape our fears or our motivations to go ahead and do whatever it is that we want to do. And so what I would tell my 17-year-old self now, while I was scared to define my own success, the people around you will support you because they know that you have greatness inside of you and they're just waiting for the opportunity to help you bring it out. They're not going to dampen that. They're excited to help that grow. It's like this plant that they're getting to water and they believe in you. And I have just been so blessed that my mother, my father, my sibling, all of them, friends, family have been so encouraging for me to just go out there and explore whatever that next step is and know that that's a generational blessing that we get to pass on. We don't have to stay in a box. We get to define this life for ourselves. We get to choose what we want our life to be about. So don't let that fear hold you back. And yes, that's what I would tell my previous self. All that being said, I quit my job, and the question is, would I do it all over again? The answer is yes, absolutely. You probably knew I was going to say yes. So there is an amazing thrill of freedom when you finally decide to quit your job. It is this refreshment that you get to define what you want your story, what you want your life to be about without the restraints of having to show up in this one very small boxed in way. I would say it's less about quitting the job and more about finding a way to show up fully as yourself most of the day. Let's take the job, for example. If your job is to be a IT technician, but you also love videography and kids and XYZ and this and that and all of these other things, but your job is just this one little small part of it. You end up feeling like, well, what about all of these other passions that I have? I want to be able to explore those and use those too. And what I love about creating a business, and specifically a lifestyle business, is that you can now, especially with this day and age of having internet, you can take a step back and say, how can I bring all of those different pieces that I love together into this one thing where it allows me to give the fullness of who I am to the world? So if you're in IT, but you also love videography and kids and cooking, then maybe what you do is you start a YouTube channel about teaching kids how to cook and you're your videographer and IT person. You've now got all the tools and resources to show up fully and do all of the beautiful things that you were created to do and get paid for it. That's what made me excited about starting this business, about leaving my job and quitting. There was this thrilling step into freedom that allowed me to be fully who I am and more than just this smaller capacity. That is why, at the end of the day, I encourage people to go ahead and take this leap. Not because you should just quit your job, but because you're missing out, or I was missing out. I won't speak for you because I was missing out on an opportunity to show up in all the ways that I wanted to show up until I finally left that job and created my own job description, created my own business where I can show up in that way for every person in every way. That being said, learning from my regrets, the best way that I would suggest that you do that is to, one, get a coach, two, create a long-term vision, and three, be open to the fact that your vision is going to adapt and evolve as you start getting out there and trying different things. That's what it boils down as to my regrets of the things that I wish that I would have had, because it would have made my transition a little bit easier. I would have quantum leaped forward a lot faster with that kind of foresight to really help me make better decisions in that moment, knowing where I wanted my destination to be. I always say this all the time. Having a long-term vision is like having a GPS, having a navigation. And so with a GPS, you put a destination in, and then the computer calculates a path for you to get there, right? Well, the same thing with your life. When you have a long-term vision, that long-term vision is you putting a destination into the GPS of your life. And then as you're picking your path, you're creating your path to get there. And anytime it has to reroute or anything, it's still going to the same destination because that's the destination that you put into the map. So that is why I suggest having that tool in order to help you get there. And if you need any help with that, I will create future videos to help you understand how I do that. But also, if you're ready to do that now, I have an amazing program called Meant for More that will help you create a long-term vision to start moving forward towards that. So quitting your career can be an extremely hard decision because there are things that you know you're going to regret. But there's also going to be things that you're like, wow, these are great revelations, things that I'm glad that I did. And you're going to have a couple fears that you're going to need to get over in order to actually take this leap and keep moving forward. But here's the biggest takeaway, especially as a recovering workaholic, is that your job does not define you. There is so much more to you. Your job is simply the way that you make money. You are more than your career. And your worth is not based on your achievements. It's not based on how far you've gone in your career or the house that you've built or any of those things. It's based on how you show up in the world. And are you showing up fully as yourself and making this world the better place that it is meant to be? And the better place that this world can be because you're in it and you're giving away who you are. So quitting really gave me the space, the opportunity, the ability to explore. Was I doing that? Was I allowing myself to stop being defined by my work? Was I allowing myself to really show up as who I wanted to be? Was I getting the opportunity to really be just the joy that I'm created to be? And so quitting my job allowed me to do all of that. And it made it so worth it. Not only did it make it worth it, it gave me the opportunity to reassess my priorities, to reassess my values, to really challenge and think about my goals in life so that I was prioritizing those things rather than any outside factors like this old idea of the American dream or even the expectations that my parents or family might have had for me, and really choosing what I wanted for myself. So quitting your job is scary and you're going to have all the feels and you're also going to have all the thrills. So know that it's a bit of an emotional roller coaster, but just like on a roller coaster, you can white knuckle it or you can throw your hands up in the air and say we. So which way do you want to do this? It is going to be an amazing adventure. And as far as I'm concerned, as you can see, I say do it. Now, when I think back to the more that I was looking for the adventure in my life. I was looking for just a little bit more of the thrill. And I wasn't looking for it in the way that I needed to go jump off a bridge or bungee cord or, drive 200 miles an hour in a race car or do anything dangerous. I just needed to find the opportunity to really live fully myself in every aspect. And being in that job wasn't giving me the freedom to do that. Quitting my career, specifically as a recovering workaholic, was the chance that I needed to rediscover who I was outside of this goal of making money. It really was this opportunity to redefine what I wanted a meaningful life to look like. Quitting my job gave me a chance to explore new interests, try new foods, go to new countries, even backpack, things that I would never do. I never thought that I would do a gorge swing off of Victoria Falls in Zimbabwe. I never thought that I would sleep in a tent in a sugarcane field in the Philippines. I never thought that I would live in Costa Rica for a year. All of these things. And here, I still work. I made my own business. I'm not saying that you won't go back to making money, but I've learned to make money the tool rather than the goal. And that's been a huge mindset shift, a huge lifestyle shift that really allowed me to find freedom of time, money, energy, and location. And that's what the new American dream looks like. And so I invite you to do that same exploration, because if you're looking at this video, you're probably in the same place that I was in, where you were like, I know that I want something different than what this life is offering right now, but I can't even begin to imagine what that would be. If that is you, take the leap. Go ahead, do it. Just jump right now. Okay. And then tell me in the comments. I'd love to have any kind of conversation with you about it. I get so excited and passionate about this. You deserve to live a life of freedom, a life that allows you to use the fullness of who you are all day long in every aspect, in all the ways, because when you, me, when we all do that, that's what makes this world a better place. And I'm all about that, seeing us together make this world a better place.